to just do a bit of like framing of our understanding of like the situation that we're in, um, which I think is maybe a useful thing to offer, because as a facilitation collective, Resist and Renew, like we have links with a lot of groups. We're both part of groups, and we're also called on to support other groups to facilitate and support what the work they're doing. So we often have quite a bird's eye view over what's going on. Yeah, so there's about 4,000 mutual aid groups across the UK that are known. There's probably even more than that, which is obviously a huge outpouring of grassroots solidarity. A lot of it's been quite spontaneous. It's quite a wide range of people doing stuff, which for people that are involved in your local groups probably won't be a surprise to you. You're probably going to be meeting a lot of people that you've never met before, even if it's people that lived in the area where you live and potentially have lived for quite a long time, because of the breakdown of community that is sadly a feature of living in a lot of parts of this country in the modern era. One thing that's worth noting is that a lot of the groups have collected under this, like, not everybody, but a lot of groups are collecting under like a mutual aid banner. But there's not necessarily like a strong understanding of like the history of the term mutual aid or what that means. There's not really like a clear, people use the term sometimes movement DNA, like there's not a clear story and structure knitting everybody together. There's a lot of different scales, like Ali touched on before. Some people are organizing just with people on their street, whereas some people are organizing across an entire city, and anything in between. And like we touched on in the previous document, and we'll share that round for people afterwards, you can keep an eye on what other people are doing. There's quite a wide range of activities people are doing. A lot of the most common ones seems to be like supporting people to get stuff which they need, shopping, prescriptions, things like that. Also like exercising the street, liaising with other organizations, things like that. So there's lots of different types of stuff. And I guess one of the points that we want to make clear is like groups that like organically grow quite quickly, there's pros and cons to that as a thing. So the upside is you can get like a really vibrant, really lively, and often potentially quite diverse group, but not necessarily. But what that also means, if you're not doing it with this like clear movement DNA or clear scope of what the group is, then you can have a lot of people with different assumptions about what the groups are and are not for, which can be a source of tension. I am one of the admins of the Hackney Mutual Aid group, which has about 8,000 people in it. And I think it's fair to say they do not all agree with what the point of that Facebook group is, what the point of mutual aid is, all these kind of things. And it's probably quite an obvious point, but it's a very stressful time for everybody just in general. And that is a thing that will affect and color a lot of the stuff that we do. Some things that people may have different assumptions about, to try and draw that out for people, in case the dynamics that they've maybe witnessed but not really recognized, is there's different assumptions around the structure of a group. So there's broadly like maybe two different types of ways that people can organize, often with these like grassroots type groups that build quite quickly. It's a lot of people just like coordinating activities that they're doing, people just doing whatever they think needs to be done. Other approaches could be like groups coming together to collaborate on stuff rather than just coordinating autonomous activity. There could be different assumptions about the scope of a group. So it could be that you just do reactive stuff. So if people say they need something, then you work on making sure their needs get met. Or you could be doing more proactive stuff, which could be like creating projects to fill gaps that you see, kind of like the point that was made before, I think it was from Cardiff, around how one of the meetings is thinking about what other stuff they want to do. And there could be different assumptions about, couldn't think of a better word, but like vibe of the group. People may want group identity and like shared values and things like that to be a really clear thing, because it's a thing that you will have in some other organizations and some other groups. But some people may not be interested in that here. It may not matter to them whether they're on the same page politically as other people, as long as people can get the support they need. So all of those can be sources of tension. And one of the things that we think all of this means for groups that are organizing is if what you want to do is anything above just coordinating autonomous activity, if you want to do any kind of collaborative plan, if you want to build projects, if you want to say there's certain things our group won't do, then what you're doing will require there to be trust with the other people that you're doing this mutual aid work with, because that, to be able to say we're not doing this, or to be able to say we are doing this, you're kind of starting to form a bit of a group identity and a bit of a scope, a bit of a shape for what your mutual aid gang, crew, whatever does. And to be able to do that and do that well, you need to be able to trust each other. And a thing that's obviously really hard in this day and age where we're not allowed to go outside and it's really hard to meet in person is building that trust and building those relationships with people. And that's one of the reasons that we and many other people think that it's important for this mutual aid work to happen at as local a level as possible. A lot of groups are working literally on a street or two around them, and then are federating up to bigger and bigger groups of people. So like if no one in your street can help you, you can go to people in the street along. If no one there can help you, you can go to your ward. If no one in your ward can help you, you can go to your borough, and you just keep getting bigger and bigger like that. But to be able to do all of these things, that requires trust, and trust requires relationships with people. And that's why doing stuff super locally is really helpful.
Cool. So this is just a little recap of session 1 of our Making Mutual Aid Groups Works series. So we started our session with a check-in. We did this by inviting people to share 3 words about how they were doing in the chat. You might want to do this verbally, but with a larger number of people, we decided that you could do 3 words in the chat just to get a sense of how people are doing. But then we used the breakout function of Zoom to put people in groups of like 4 or 3, so that then they could have a bit more time to hear each other. So then people could share their name, their pronoun if they wanted, where they were from, and also chat about what kind of things they've been getting up to with mutual aid groups where they are. Then we moved on to talk about how it's really exciting that there are so many mutual aid groups coming together and trying to support each other through this difficult time. But also, it's going to bring a lot of people together who otherwise might not have got to work together or got to know each other. And different people are going to bring different approaches and different assumptions about what these mutual aid groups are for. And this can create tension. So we just want to highlight that this is one of the things which is probably going to affect a lot of the groups that are coming together at the moment. So then we moved on to use a tool, a technique to get lots of information out quickly and share ideas. So this tool was a virtual post-it note wall using Google Slides, which we will share in a description or in the email that we send out with this. And yeah, it just allowed people to write down their thoughts about what they wanted to offer or what they wanted as support from their community in this time. You might use this to talk about different issues. So you might want to use it to list the number of the different skills that are out in the community at the moment, what people can offer for each other. But you also might want to use it to dig into some of those assumptions that we have. So like we could talk about values, or we could talk about the ways we want to treat each other and the ways that we don't want to treat each other. And we didn't go further into that, into how we might deal with the differences that might emerge from that. But in our later sessions in the series, we will look at some of the ways to go further there. And one of the things we're saying is that we think it's really important that if as much as possible, core groups should be as local as possible. And that's because we think that groups are stronger and are more resilient when they can build trust between each other and build relationships with each other. That can happen on a smaller scale, on a lower local scale, because there's going to be less people involved. If you've got a mutual aid group for a whole town or a whole city even, like that's going to be hundreds of or thousands of people in a WhatsApp group or whatever platform you're using, and it's really hard to build consistency and build trust and build those relationships. Whereas if you're in a smaller group, then it's easier because there'll be more consistency, there'll be more time spent with each other, getting to know each other, and maybe you'll have multiple ways of building those relationships. So some of it is going to be online through online meetings on Zoom or Skype or whatever platform you're using, but other ways are going to be like passing each other on the street or in the park while maintaining your distance, or by delivering food to one another, or putting posters in the window, or whatever else you're using to communicate with each other. There's going to be more opportunities when that group is a bit smaller and localer, so you have more ways to interact. So yeah, in our session we used a lot of different tools, and we suggest that to use a lot of ways of interacting to make things a bit interesting, to shift the energy a bit, and basically to avoid just talking, because it's quite tiring staring at a screen and talking, and it also doesn't make space for different ways of interacting or different people to speak in different ways, because not everyone wants to like speak to a big group of people that they might not know. So yeah, Zoom has breakout groups, and you can also use like tools like the post-it notes or the chat function, and we'll go into more on this in future sessions. So yeah, that's the summary of session 1. We do have 3 more sessions to go, and really hope you can come along to them. The next one is on facilitation skills for online meetings. The one after that is around conflict and disagreement. And then the final one is around burnout and resilience, so taking care of ourselves while we take care of each other during these periods. Thanks very much, and hope to see you at the next session.